So, nice to meet you. I guess first question is, a little bit about your background and your story and why you began first with research and then pretty much into your sort of diverse range of topics. So, what was the inspiration and I guess what have been some of the big defining moments / learnings during this time?
I don't know how to answer that question. I had good professors when I was in student. I'd always thought intellectual life would be good, so I wanted to be a professor from early in my life. And that changed which field I thought I would specialize in a few times. Psychology is a good mixture of philosophy and science. So I was able to tackle big philosophical questions and use the scientific method.
So, why? I mean, and I read up a little bit as to the number of topics that you've researched, right? So it's gone from perception of self, self-esteem, willpower. Was there like a story or a reason it went that way, or was it much more, one thing leading to another?
It's more one thing leading to another. I'm interested in a lot of things, and I was a student in the early 70s, in the late 70s, and that was still a time when there were big changes in society and people were interested in exploring and understanding what the human mind could do. So I think I got caught up in that. There was a time when psychology departments suddenly got a lot more people. Within a few years, I know I was at Princeton and they said they used to have 15 or 20 majors and suddenly they had 80 or 100. So I think that reflected the society's interest in understanding people and understanding the individual mind and the potential. And so that affected me when I was a student. It's been a good career in life.
Yeah, so what interests me a lot about psychology is that I'm picking on the idea that you pushed a lot, right? Like forget self-esteem, focus on self-control.
Yes.
First, could you just talk us through your view on that?
Well, I started studying self-esteem early, and I was excited about it, as many people were. And we hoped it would really be a key to success in life. If we could raise people's self-esteem, maybe they'd be happier and healthier and more successful. But over time, that became a big disappointment. I think it was an honest mistake. There were correlations. So students with higher self-esteem do better in school, but the high self-esteem is a result, not a cause of doing well in school. Initially they just saw they went together and thought, okay, well that's great, let's raise people's self-esteem and then they'll do better in school. But when they started tracking people over time, then doing well in school led to higher self-esteem later. High self-esteem first did not lead to doing better in school. So there were a lot of disappointments like that, and gradually became disenchanted with the potential for self-esteem to do a lot of good. It's still an intriguing puzzle of why people love themselves and where that comes from. But self-control, much more powerful in terms of producing practical effect, and also in terms of the theory of understanding the mind and the self and all that. Self-control is very central, and it's how the self regulates everything else it does. Self-esteem is one part of the picture, but it's not as central as self-control, self-regulation.
So one of the biggest things that I learned from your book, right, on willpower was one of the best uses of willpower is to use it to form habits, right? And I'd love to understand a little bit your view there.
Well, that's been a recent change in emphasis. So we think of willpower being used for resisting temptation, sort of really powerful acts of virtue and will in the moment. But the people who are successful in the long run seem instead to use their self-control to set up the life to run smoothly with good habits and good routines. We published a study last year where we tracked people all day as to their desires they felt and whether they resisted them or not. So an obvious prediction is that people with high self-control would resist their desires more frequently. But it came out significantly in the opposite directions. They're less likely to resist desires. It's not because high self-control means you give in to all the time, but rather they avoid the situations where they have desires that they have to resist. We also found that people with high self-control, in other words, do very well in school. And it's not, that's the sort of thing we're developing good study habits, working steadily. It's not staying up all night before the paper's due to get it done or to study for the test, but rather establishing good, working regularly, again, good habits, and staying on schedule and getting things done without the stress and the crisis of the last minute. So I think that's why we're thinking of the habit finding right now. There's a bit of a change in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't expect that, right? What I expected was, the other two insights were, one, willpower is like a muscle. The more you flex it, the better it becomes. And of course, you regulate yourself in a way that you don't get ego depleted during a day or, kind of keep it up. But I just found that very interesting because it changes the focus from, build as much willpower as you can because it's going to help you versus use it to channel it into habits, right? And keep building better habits.
Well, those can go together because building the habits will take good regular exercise and self-control and they won't deplete you as much.
Yeah.
But yes, doing both, make yourself stronger and develop the good habits. That's a good key to that's what successful people do, I think.
So it's very true because thanks to this, I've been interviewing a lot of people, right? And it's amazing how over time I found the ones who do well I've just figured out some of the most basic things, exercise and stuff, which kind of keeps the rest of the world busy in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the next question, which is, I found it very funny that William Hill, I think, has a running bet on anybody on anybody getting to do a diet plan, right? Or I think that's what it is. So set a diet goal, and William Hill will automatically give you a bet against it because they're sure you would fail.
Yes.
I think that's a practical problem everybody faces. It's exercise and kind of reading, knowledge, study, kind of that. So what have been some of the most successful applications of willpower, etc., towards exercise as a problem example?
Oh, I don't quite know how to answer that. I'm a basic scientist. We try to figure out how things work for the applications or things other people do. I know one of my PhD students last year trained people to improve their willpower, and then they were much more successful at quitting smoking, which is a remarkable achievement because very little research gets anywhere with quitting smoking. It's the graveyard of many psychological theories. Yeah. But he tripled their success rate. And
how did he do that?
Well, he had them do exercises for a couple of weeks to build up their self-control and sort of things covered in the book. And he sort of, I forget exactly which ones he did, but just using your willpower. In the first study he and I did together, we had people work on their posture. Simple self-control, sit up straight, stand up straight. And then we gave them laboratory tests that had nothing to do with posture, but after doing those posture exercises, they did better on them. They showed improvements in self-control.
So I guess then the question is, one of the things that I found helpful is, to build your reserve, which is kind of a more practical problem. I guess what we're looking at is sleep well, eat well, which is pretty much ancient wisdom, but I guess do it at regular intervals, and then you're kind of giving yourself a shot of having at least as much willpower as you can have at a particular point, right?
Yes, at the moment, getting food and rest will do the best for you, and then in the long run, as I said, do exercises to sort of strengthen the muscle, get better at it.
So here's I guess a different question. How has studying all of this changed your life? I mean, it must be. I mean, you are pretty much at the forefront of figuring out, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. So how has this whole thing, affected the way you lead your life?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not one of those people who studies things just because they're part of my life. I'm more like to study things in other people's lives and learn about other people this way. Yeah. I'll say one thing that changed though is your willpower depends on your glucose, the body's energy supply. And that's also what your immune system uses for fighting diseases. It used to be when I started to get sick, I'd make myself keep working. I'd go to the computer and I'd say, and the physician would say, oh, you should take some rest, get lots of sleep, don't work. And I thought, well, my work, I'm just sitting there. I'm not really, it's not like I'm out there lifting heavy weights or hauling stones across the desert or anything.
Yes.
I could just do that. But that's wrong. I've learned that the intellectual work uses plenty of energy too. And also you're taking it away. You want to let your body use all of its strength to fight the disease. So now when I start to get sick, instead of making myself continue to work, I just go to bed and try to sleep around the clock for a day or two. And that works, and then I don't get sick. And it's more efficient in the long run, even though at the moment things are, I should finish that paper or do whatever I'm working on. But, the work, it turned out that I did when I was sick often wasn't very good anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not very efficient to do it. And then take 2 days to get nothing done, which is unusual for me. But then I don't get sick, and then I'm back to full strength, and I can get right to work and do better quality work again. So that's been one change that I use.
So one of the interesting things that I found, right, is that it's come from the many experiments where you keep chocolate chip cookies in front of people, etc., etc., and how even little things, exhaust the willpower muscle. So what I've realized from that is you've almost got to be very picky, one, about the environment you're in to remove temptations in a way, and two, also, I guess, almost tailor or trigger your day in a way that you spend your willpower on what's most critical, right? So almost like, don't keep chocolate chip cookies in the house even if you feel that's going to tempt you. But I always realize that it's an engineering of almost the way you live life and not just about little things you do. Yeah. At least that's kind of what I've taken away from it.
Yes. If you're resisting temptations, that's just using up some of your energy. Our president apparently read some of our work and said, that's it, I'm just going to wear blue and gray suits all the time. So he just wears the same thing, doesn't want to waste any energy thinking about what he's going to eat or what he's going to wear. Because that was a finding that the making decisions uses up the same energy that self-control uses. So,
and that's a big one because I've heard you discuss this, right? With repeated falls of athletes and politicians and stuff from glory. I guess this is at least a way to explain seeming irrationality or seeming stupidity, right? From so many figures who've, I guess, fallen down the pedestal over the years. Just ego depletion thanks to, I guess, so many decisions being made.
Yes. Well, certainly someone at that level, at a president or someone else, has a lot of important decisions. Since he said easy decisions never get to him; they only come to him if they're difficult. So really, he's still just a human being with a finite amount of energy. You want to conserve it. And so, we understand how the body works. I mean, this is all new for psychology. 20 years ago when I started this work, nobody, including myself, thought of energy terms. Everything then was about information processing. The brain is a little computer. That is the prevailing model. But now I think there's much more awareness of energy being limited and energy processes are important. So, you want to learn what changes and how to manage it.
Now, I guess, a final question before we just get into a couple of the last ones. And this one is, it feels from the outside. Now, I'm not, I didn't study psychology, but I have a great interest in it, curiosity in a way. But it feels like it's available for the masses a lot more now. With you and Dan Ariely, with all the science of irrationality, and then you have Habit. I think you had Charles Duhigg write a book on that. It's really, it feels like it's a lot more present and available. And is this a golden age of sorts, or is it just that we're coming to know of it because people are writing books about it? I don't know, at least.
I think it's a pretty, golden age is a little strong, but it's a very good time for psychology. It has some challenges. We're trying to improve our scientific methods and developing new statistical issues and challenges and so forth. But yeah, it's a good time.
Final two questions. The first one is, are there any, I know you're extremely productive as a researcher and as a person, and you've done, I mean, there's been so many good things, right? So I would love to understand the process. So, what are some little routines or processes or things that help you be productive in a day or in a week? What are things you follow?
Well, I think in any career you have to figure out what's important and give priority to doing that. When you're a professor, you're constantly asked to do this and that, and evaluate this person, and come give a lecture here, and do all these things. And you have to realize what matters in the long run is how much research you get done and published. So you have to give priority to those things. And actually, when the Willpower book came out, it was a shock to me because usually when I publish a book, I forget about it. There's nothing more to be done. And that there was so much media interest in, and I had to do all the interviews for it, which were worth doing, and they helped the book, but they all came out of the time for writing. So I was all going to go to papers I was going to write and get started on another book and all those things. And it was hard to make the time to do those. So normally I try to keep a sense of what's really important and what to work on first. We still have to go and teach classes and go to faculty meetings and things like that, so I can't skip those things. So when an extra demand for time comes up, then it comes out of what's needed for writing papers and meeting with research assistants and planning new studies and all that. And so the research gets slowed down, and it's a struggle to continue to be very productive because of all these challenges.
Yeah. I guess final question is very much, is there something that inspires you? Is there a message that you would like to share? Is there some big revelation or probably, some message that helps you in your life that you would like to share?
I should think about this. It's a profound question rather than come off the top of my head after a 14-hour plane flight. But I guess what I'd say is I always look for efficiency. You want to get a lot done. Some people try to put in the huge long hours, but eventually that gets to you. And instead, to get the most out of the time you have, there's no way to make more hours in the day, so you want to use them as efficiently as possible. So with each task, think, how can I get it done efficiently? You can't sacrifice the quality of, well, you can on some things, but you got to think, is this important to do the best quality work I can? If I'm writing a book or a paper, I want to make it really good. So then I think, well, how can I make it as good as I possibly can, but efficiently? So efficiency is, is the amount you get done divided by the amount of time you have. So try to get the most done in each period possible.
Perfect. No, I mean, thank you so much.